Hello, thank you all for coming. My presentation will be about dystopia and the home and the house. I assume that you all know the terms dystopia and utopia, so you also know the terms are not commerce. Dystopia is an extremely important fact because now contemporary city constitutes an intensely uneven patchwork of utopian and dystopian spaces. This patchwork have been imagined of many others a long while ago. After 90s, utopias die with communism. Dreaming the end of the world seems more possible than dreaming the end of the dominant system. Now we have urgent problems: starvation, identity issues. Is it the turn of the ecology, utopia, or the anti-capitalist fight? Therefore, the term dystopia is now heavily considerable, and to see the relation between space and dystopia, we should look at the dystopic novels and films. First, novels. Zamyatin's novel V has a particularly characteristic place in dystopic literature. Zamyatin, who inspired Huxley and Orwell, indicates the totalitarianism threat in V and transforms the anti-utopia to a radical critic weapon. In the novel, the human is snapped off the nature and his or her identity. In this dystopia, people have names instead of numbers. Everything is made of glass, from buildings to tools. In V, everyone lives in identical units. The house is a transparent glass cube, not owned, just sheltered in. Female and male numbers can only close the curtains during the visits, sexual intercourse hours. In it, to see and to be seen is considerably out of the way. On the right and the left, through the glass walls, I see myself, my room, my clothes, my movements. Repeat it 1,000 times over. This is bracing. You feel yourself a part of a great, powerful, single entity. And the precise beauty of it, not single superfluous gesture, curve or turn. At first, dystopia looks like an utopia for the numbers who live in it. Transparency, which represents openness and honesty, emphasizes that people are a part of a whole, just like the inhabitants in the TV series The Prisoner. At all other times, we live behind our transparent walls that seem woven of gleaming air. We are always visible, always watched in light. We have nothing to conceal from one another. We have nothing to hide from one another. In V, D503 realizes that he is an individual by time, wants to close the transparent place where he lives in it, and even gets a permit for a visit hour to think, to write. Just like the number 6 in The Prisoner, who tries to get away from the village, where everyone spies on each other. In both examples, heroine's only desire, privacy, and self-concealment. Privacy, which is limitless, is explicated in Beckett's film. Le Film. The character runs away from people despite he has a veil on his face. And finally, he cuts the photographs which he is in it. Apparently, the character's privacy includes himself, and he is the one that he wants to run away from. It's noteworthy that socialist architects created a transparent glass architecture in Weimar when Zamyatin wrote V. Obviously, Zamyatin made a radical criticism to the revolution and transparency, and explored the effects which the loss of privacy caused. Additionally, what Zamyatin does is to ruin the typical perception of the home, rather to utter the distraction. The expression that people refers to the home is narrated as ridiculous and criticized by D503's words. Perhaps it was precisely those strange opaque dwellings of the ancients that gave rise to their patriarchate psychology. My home is my castle. What an idea. However, it has been in the air that modern person takes refuge in a monad by enlightenment. The character in V, who becomes a modern loner, searches for a shelter for himself. Apparently, there is no home in dystopias. Zamyatin predicted that the modern architecture and modern world would transform the house, which is our first corner, first nest in the universe. And according to Bauman, transparency is one of modern government's totalitarian conflicts. This attempt for transparency in favor of the government is very natural because modern architecture is instrumentalized by many ideologies. Additionally, According to Zamyatin, the house is not owned, but inhabited. This is a fact that is commonly seen in modern world. Heidegger claims that the dwelling in the proper sense is now impossible. Adorno also says the house is past. And another hesitant utopia dystopia in which the house is not owned is a book of Le Guin, The Dispossessed. Her hero Işıkpınar says, you can go home again, as long as you understand that home is a place where you have never been. Apparently, Le Guin believes that the house, which is lived in, is not a home. And the basic similarity between we and the dispossessed is that the thought of the no more home. I mean that no one ever lives in a home no more. Another dystopia, which doesn't consist the feeling of the home, is the film of Fritz Lang, Metropolis. Metropolis is a combination of the upper city for rich and the lower city for poor or worker. In lower city, there are structures just like cells. Lang made the lower city invisible and imperceptible by positioning it underground. Obliqueness to the surface makes the nominal homes dungeons. These cells become just a place for modern individual, or a landlord, or a homeless. Next dystopia is 1984 by Orwell. George Orwell narrates transparency by visibility and being spied on. Maybe the walls of the houses that has Big Brother poster on it are not glass, but each wall is being watched by the telescreen. In here, transparency is the synonymous of the motion of being watched. People obey to Big Brother without questioning it, but with fear, of course. Modern power means being watched. Transparent city, which is watched and controlled, gets the form through the detection of the notion modern. And the dark transparency in dystopias gets a positive meaning in utopias, just like in the ideal country Severan West and its perfect capital Severate. Open glare planned city is a symbol of rational happiness. Eye and seeing are probably the most important things in a dystopia. Seeing and to be seen keeps the place between the object and the subject. So, it's a result of the modern world. For example, Corbusier thinks everything is related to the visual one. Structure should take the one that's not in. It should compose a memory. That's why windows are eyes of a building. They make the building see. To look for seeing, but limiting it with a frame, not being close in the view is necessary. Apparently, Corbusier thinks that transparency is novel. On the other hand, Lowell's approach to the eye through a different perspective. According to him, a literary man doesn't look through the window because it's frosted glass, because a window only exists to take the light inside space. Lowell, who assumes modernity as not attracting attention, is a fan of not the transparent one. Also, Calvino imagines a world through the eye in invisible cities. He replaces the human, who is domesticated in a visible city, to the invisible city, outside the house. Invisible cities are not non-existent. They are just the ones that nobody finds distorts. They are far away from the home. It's a world of not the home. In addition to this, Dalberg recommends not to attract attention. He chooses the forgotten cities. He hides the glass surfaces of the houses. He makes the cities invisible. And famous character Ulrich starts with the idea of mutual life of people, needs, confidence inter pares, and continues with the thesis of an open life for people. And he calls for sliding walls in dwellings. So, if it's wanted, there can be no room for walls. In this way, privacy can be meaningless. To spy and to be spied on, which the loss of privacy caused, develops subtext in dystopias. Zamyatin does it with glass. Orwell prefers telescreen. Huxley in Brave New World accepts the traditional family fact related to privacy is filthy. Huxley attacks the traditional values and he cuts out them. In Fahrenheit 451, in which papers are on fire, Bradbury narrates the firemen as book burners. In this work, firemen look for the houses, which are full of books, by the help of the mechanic house. Moreover, memories of the community and the individuals are under control of TVs and e-radios. Bradbury, just like the other dystopia authors, mentioned about the control of the technological equipments. And he also emphasized on the trespass of the houses. Privacy is lost, and modern architecture instrumentalized regularness, sameness, which makes us remember the dominance of the totalitarian regime for the sake of the dystopia. As a matter of fact, the past century is the age of the ideologies, so it's very natural that dystopias are being related to the architecture. Dystopias have no room for private space. Home is the place of peace, the shelter, not only from all injury, but from all terror, doubt, and division. Insofar as it's not this, it's not home. Now, Ruskin makes sense. In a dystopia, a house is not a home. It's just a warm place under a roof. On top of all this, the whole reminds us the ideal panopticon. Panopticon has no room for private space. People who are continuously watched, or not watched, that's not definite, should behave nicely. The uncanny in dystopias refers to the ideal panopticon model. In a dystopia, people are visible and being watched by anyone. People have no room for hiding, just like a panopticon. This makes us think, can a prison or a cell be a home, a house? Dystopias, with the help of the architecture, try to distract a nest. But, as a matter of fact, an inhabitant is the one who makes a modern place a home, a nest. Because now in modern world, the individual forms the life through the subject. This case is being told in the film of Ray Charles Eames, House After 5 Years of Living, very well. Dystopias make these private interventions impossible. So the nest isn't on the stage of the dystopia. A nest or anything familiar isn't on the stage of the dystopia. Now we are talking about distance from the past, memories, family, time, routine, existence system. Everything is temporary, dynamic and flexible. So the marks that are built are being deleted continuously, just like in Constance de Babylon. Surprisingly, dystopia is our new burqa. According to Freud, a face is a mask that hides the terror of the near thing. So a face covers up the terrifying one. The veiled face becomes unfamiliar. In addition to this, a burqa has a narrow gap for the eye. So someone behind the burqa is like a watcher in a dystopia. So, dystopia is important because of its relation with the modern architecture. It's important because with its help, we find out the one which is not the home. And nowadays, a dystopia is closer than ever. Being watched with cameras, or having codes for living, or being spied on through the computers. So, the future which the dystopia authors imagined is already started. I think the representation caused some problems to all of you, and I can finish it with some questions. Like in dystopias, will there be no room for hiding? Will the houses be the new space, not the home? The dystopic novels or films will come true completely. Modernism is nothing but ambiguity. So, I prefer to leave you these questions, and any answer is possible, I guess. Thank you for your attention.